The South African Commercial, Catering and Allied Workers Union has accused the United States Embassy of ignoring the plight of workers at Makro. Employees affiliated to the union have been protesting again today after some of their striking colleagues were fired by the retailer. Makro is owned by the US-based company Massmart or Walmart. Workers have been striking after wage negotiations with management deadlocked.
Let me first address this attitude we are getting here. The attitude we are getting here is the same attitude we are getting from Walmart, Massmart. It clearly tells you, comrade, that they got an instruction. Now we will find a way to deal with them. As workers, comrade, we are in power. And if we are united, we will be able to deal and defeat the enemy of the working class. If we are disunited, comrade, we are going to see what we are seeing here today. We are told here, Orumudonale party section 4 meeting has agreed. She has agreed that people will come here and receive the memorandum. Now we are told, no, they can't guarantee they are safe.
Let's get more on that story with Saccawu's head of media and research, Stembele Trete. A very good evening to you, sir. Grateful for your time. What do you think your demonstration today will be able to do for the plight of workers at Makro?
We have seen today a number of workers, besides Makro workers, workers from game builders joining in the strike, which is what we've been galvanizing for quite a long time. Today was the beginning of another tranche of strike action, which will take about 10 days from today. Wherein we are trying to knock on the doors of Makro to be able to come back to the negotiating table so that we could conclude the matter.
And do you see a conclusion in sight, given just how much more strained the relationship has become, especially in the last few days, with the sacking of those hundreds of workers?
Yes, with the company playing hide and seek, we are seeing a protracted dispute, mainly because the company is negotiating in bad faith. We have been in CCMA, in talks that were facilitated by the CCMA 3 times now. The last time they were going back to consider, our revised offer of 7%. They never came back to the CCMA, and they called us aside, and we had a high-level meeting with their directors, and still they wouldn't budge on those negotiations. Meanwhile, the time that were set for at CCMA was lapsing, the 60 days. So that's why I'm saying we are seeing a company that's playing hide and seek. So we're left with no option but to press on.
But by going to the embassy, is that not asking basically a government of another country, i.e. the US, to basically be involved in what is a labor relations issue between an employer and their employees?
We've registered our concern at the embassy. We're quite sure that there will be discussions, and in one way or the other with the company, between the company and the American government.
But is it really
as well as
the
South
American
African
government's problem?
It is because the company is based in the US, pays taxes in the US, and they are doing business here in South Africa through Massmart. It is involved. It's quite relevant on this issue.
And did the embassy give you any assurance that they would be involved, or have they given the generic, we're going to have a look at your memorandum and get back to you within X number of days?
We've given them the memorandum reluctantly, so they've accepted it after 2 hours of us, standing outside and workers getting agitated. And they promised to come back to us.
And do you think when they do get back to you, they'll say anything other than what I was saying to you earlier, that this is basically an issue between an employer and employees, and therefore the relevant domestic channels here in South Africa are perhaps best placed to deal with it? Are you suggesting at this point that you've exhausted all local avenues to basically try and get the best deal for your members at Makro?
The company has pulled out of the processes that are laid down by the Labour Relations Act, which is the CCMA calling us together. They've reneged on that, and all we're saying is that they need to be pushed to go back to the negotiating table.
And your demands then, is it still the main 7, including a 900 Rand wage increase or 12%, whichever is higher? I think 8,000 Rand as a minimum wage level. You also have demands to do with a uniform maintenance monthly and changes in the hours of some categories of workers.
We had placed a revised offer on the table. They have not come back to us. They are still sticking on the 4.5%, citing the fact that they cannot afford that as the group. All we're saying is that we know that the group hasn't made that much of profit, but they have made profits. They fell short of 2 billion. We know that within that group, Makro, the one that we're negotiating with, has done very, very well even during the COVID period. We were disputing that they are not, they can't afford to pay workers. I mean, we've revised our offer to 7% now, which is 600 rands.
And if they're not going to move on 900 Rand, you're not getting a favorable response on the 600 Rand, at least so far. Are you at all considering dropping that figure further, considering that you've now come down by 300 Rand from my calculation?
There will have to be proper reasons for us to be able to do that. Temegula, you must also take into consideration that these workers are earning nothing at the present moment. They haven't had an increase in about 3 years. We had a three-year agreement with the company, and we had agreed that there's not going to be an increase throughout those 3 years, 6% throughout.
Right.
And all we're saying is that workers have held to the 6% for the past 3 years. At least they must get something now.
What becomes now of those workers who Makro has fired in recent days?
Not that way, fired.
What happens to those who've been fired since the start of the strike?
We've taken the issue to the CCMA, and we feel that it's just another ploy by the company to intimidate workers. We've taken that to the CCMA. We feel that the right procedures and the reason for their dismissals is not sort of a fair reason. They can dismiss, but they must dismiss on a fair reason. The one thing that they've done is that they've been provoking members, our workers that are on picket lines, taking photos and everything, and saying that they've breached picket lines. Our members have carried themselves with the utmost discipline. They haven't intimidated customers. They haven't vandalized any property of Makro. They stayed within the picketing lines.
Okay.
And yet they are getting dismissed. We see that as a way of just extinguishing the union from the establishment.
Mr. Stembiele Trete, good to speak to you. Saccawu's head of media and research. Thank you for your time tonight.